The moment Victoria Hale laughed at the grease-stained sketches covering the walls of Noah Carter's failing garage, she sealed her fate. What the ruthless billionaire CEO dismissed as desperate fantasies from a broken mechanic were actually designs, worth billions, technology powerful enough to expose deadly corporate secrets and destroy empires overnight. But before Noah could change the world, someone had to believe in him. And the woman who humiliated him in front of his daughter would become the only person willing to risk everything to stand beside him when the entire industry tried to silence him forever. If you want to see how a forgotten mechanic and a heartless billionaire brought down corruption that cost millions of lives, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hammered Riverside like it had a grudge. Not the gentle kind that washes things clean, but the violent, angry kind that floods gutters and turns dirt roads into rivers of mud. Noah Carter stood in the open bay of his garage, watching water pour off the corrugated metal roof in sheets. The storm had killed business for the day, which meant another night of choosing between groceries and the electric bill. He was 32, but some mornings he felt 60, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. His hands were stained black with engine grease that never fully washed out, no matter how hard he scrubbed. His work shirt had his name stitched above the pocket, the only professional thing about him anymore. Everything else about Noah Carter screamed failure. The struggling garage barely big enough for 2 cars, the ancient tools he couldn't afford to replace, the cracked concrete floor that pooled water every time it rained. But the worst part wasn't the poverty. It was the silence. 3 years ago, this garage had been filled with laughter. His wife Sarah used to bring him lunch, their daughter Emily running circles around the cars, her giggles echoing off the metal walls. Now the only sound was the rhythmic drip of a roof leak into a coffee can and the distant hum of traffic on the highway. "Dad?" Noah turned. Emily stood in the doorway connecting the garage to their tiny apartment, clutching a math workbook. She was 10 years old, with her mother's dark eyes and stubborn chin. Too smart for her own good, too aware of how little they had. "Yeah, sweetheart? Can you help me with number 7? I don't get the word problem." Noah wiped his hands on a rag and walked over, kneeling beside her. The problem involved calculating the cost of groceries with a budget. He felt something twist in his chest. Even her homework was a reminder of their situation. "Okay, so if you have $40 and milk costs $4.50. "We only have $40? Emily asked quietly. "It's just a math problem, Em." "But is that what we have for groceries?" Noah looked at his daughter's face, at the worry that no 10-year-old should carry, and lied. "We're fine. Don't worry about that stuff." She didn't look convinced, but she nodded and went back to her workbook. Noah stood, his knees cracking, and returned to the engine he'd been working on, a 2004 Honda Civic with a blown head gasket. The owner was a single mom who could barely afford the repair. He'd quoted her half what he should have, which meant he'd make almost nothing on the job. But he couldn't turn her away. He knew what it was like to be desperate. The walls of his garage were covered in something nobody knew about: sketches, blueprints, detailed technical drawings that filled every available surface. At first glance, they looked like the obsessive scribbles of someone losing their mind. But look closer, and you'd see precision, innovation, years of work compressed into diagrams that represented something bigger than this failing garage, bigger than Riverside, bigger than anything Noah had let himself hope for in a long time. They were automotive safety systems, advanced collision detection, predictive braking technology, rollover prevention mechanisms. Every design had emerged from the same nightmare, the accident that killed Sarah. He'd been an engineer once, a good one. He'd worked for Meridian Automotive, one of the largest manufacturers in the country, designing safety systems that were supposed to protect families. But when he discovered a defect in their braking system, a flaw that could cause catastrophic failures, and reported it internally, everything fell apart. They'd buried his report, discredited him, painted him as unstable, paranoid, a disgruntled employee making false accusations. Within 6 months, he was blacklisted from the industry. No company would touch him. His reputation was destroyed, his career obliterated. And then Sarah died in a car accident caused by the exact defect he'd tried to expose. The official report called it driver error. Noah knew better. He'd spent 3 years designing systems that could have saved her, systems that could save thousands of others. But nobody wanted to listen to a disgraced engineer working out of a garage barely big enough to change oil. So he kept drawing, kept designing, kept pretending that maybe someday it would matter. The sound of engines cut through the rain. Multiple engines, big ones. Noah stepped toward the garage entrance and froze. A convoy of black SUVs was pulling off the highway, water spraying from their tires. They moved in formation, too precise to be civilians. The lead vehicle turned into his garage lot, followed by two others. This wasn't a normal customer. The vehicle stopped in a semicircle, blocking the entrance. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the rear door of the center SUV opened, and someone stepped out. A woman, mid-30s, tall, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than Noah's monthly rent. Her hair was pulled back severely, and even through the rain, Noah could see the cold calculation in her eyes. She moved like someone who expected the world to get out of her way. Behind her, two men in dark suits emerged from the other vehicles. Security. They flanked her as she walked toward the garage, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. Noah didn't move. He just watched her approach, wondering what kind of trouble had just walked into his life. She stopped at the edge of the garage, looking at him with the kind of expression people reserve for things they've stepped in. "This is a mechanic shop?" Her voice was sharp, dismissive. "That's what the sign says. I need someone to look at my car." Noah glanced past her at the convoy. "Which one?" "None of those." She gestured impatiently toward the highway. "My car broke down 2 miles back. I need it towed here and repaired immediately." "I don't have a tow truck." Her expression didn't change. "Then call one." "Lady, I don't know who you think you are." "Victoria Hale." She said it like he should recognize the name. When he didn't react, something flickered across her face. Annoyance. "Hale Dynamics. We manufacture 70% of the advanced automotive systems in North America." Noah knew the name. Hale Dynamics was one of the biggest players in the industry, worth billions. They produced everything from engine management systems to autonomous driving technology. He'd followed their work when he was still an engineer. "I'm aware of your company," Noah said carefully. "Good. Then you understand that time is valuable. My car needs to be fixed now. I'm working on something else right now, and it's almost closing time." Victoria stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "I'll pay you double your rate. It's not about money. I don't have the equipment for whatever high-end car you're driving. You'd be better off calling your dealership." "I can't wait for a dealership. I have a meeting in 3 hours." "Then I'd suggest finding another garage." Something dangerous entered Victoria's eyes. She wasn't used to people saying no. "Do you understand who I am?" "A billionaire with a broken car and an attitude problem." One of her security guards stepped forward, but Victoria held up a hand. She studied Noah for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "What's your name?" "Noah Carter." Well, Noah Carter, let me explain something to you. I don't make requests. When I need something done, it gets done. Whatever you're working on can wait. My car cannot. My customer's car can't wait either. She needs it to get to work tomorrow. I'll compensate her for the inconvenience. It's not about compensation. I gave her my word." Victoria's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Your word? You run a garage that's barely functional. Your customer should be grateful you can fix anything at all." Noah felt his jaw tighten. "I think you should leave." "Excuse me? You heard me. I'm not fixing your car. Find someone else." For a moment, Victoria looked genuinely shocked. Then her expression hardened into something colder. "Fine. I'll find another mechanic. But first..." She brushed past him, walking into the garage. "I need to use your facilities. The bathroom's around back." But Victoria wasn't heading for the bathroom. She was looking around the garage, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. The ancient tools, the cracked floor, the duct-taped rolling chair. And then her gaze landed on the walls. She stopped. Noah's stomach dropped. Victoria walked slowly toward the nearest wall, studying the sketches covering it. Her head tilted slightly as she examined the technical drawings, the detailed specifications, the complex engineering diagrams that Noah had spent years perfecting. "What is this?" she asked. "Nothing, just sketches." "These aren't just sketches." She traced a finger along one of the diagrams. "This is a predictive braking system." Noah didn't respond. Victoria moved to another section of the wall, her expression shifting from curiosity to something closer to disbelief. And this is an advanced rollover prevention mechanism. She turned to look at him. Did you draw these? They're just ideas, Ideas? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. These are detailed engineering specifications. Where did you get them? I designed them. The look Victoria gave him was pure contempt. You designed them? A mechanic who can barely keep his garage open designed advanced automotive safety systems. I used to be an engineer. Used to be. She turned back to the wall, scanning the other drawings. Let me guess. You worked at some company, got fired, and now you spend your time doodling impossible inventions while pretending you could have been somebody. Noah's hands clenched into fists. You don't know anything about me. I know exactly who you are. I've seen 1,000 people like you. Engineers who couldn't cut it in the real world, so they hide in places like this, convincing themselves they're misunderstood geniuses. She gestured at the walls. These designs are fantasies, desperate attempts to convince yourself you still matter. Get out of my garage. Victoria's smile was cruel. Oh, did I hurt your feelings? Here's some free advice. If you want people to take you seriously, try actually accomplishing something instead of covering your walls with dreams. I said get out. Dad? Noah turned. Emily was standing in the doorway, still holding her math workbook. She was staring at Victoria with wide eyes, and Noah realized his daughter had heard everything. Victoria glanced at Emily, then back at Noah. You have a daughter? That makes this even sadder. What kind of example are you setting for her? That it's okay to waste your life on impossible dreams instead of accepting reality? Something inside Noah snapped. You need to leave. Right now. Victoria looked genuinely amused. Or what? You'll call the police? Tell them a customer insulted your feelings? Mom was an engineer too, Emily said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. Emily's voice was small but steady. She died because the car company said their brakes were safe, but they weren't. Dad tried to tell them, but they fired him instead. So he draws these to make sure other families don't lose their moms. The garage fell silent, except for the rain. Victoria stared at Emily for a long moment. Then she looked back at Noah, and for just a second, something flickered across her face. Not quite sympathy, but maybe recognition. Then it was gone. I'm sorry about your wife, Victoria said, but that doesn't change reality. These designs might make you feel better, but they'll never amount to anything. You're nobody. You have no resources, no connections, no credibility. This garage is where your dreams die. She walked past Noah toward the exit, her security guards falling into step behind her. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. For what it's worth, she said, you should focus on being a decent father instead of chasing impossible fantasies. Your daughter deserves better than this. Then she was gone, disappearing into the rain. Noah stood frozen, his heart pounding, fury and humiliation burning through him. He wanted to chase after her, to scream, to make her understand what she'd just done. But Emily was watching, and he couldn't let her see him fall apart. Dad? Emily's voice was quiet. Are you okay? Noah forced himself to breathe, to unclench his fists, to find some kind of calm. I'm fine, sweetheart. She was mean. Yeah, she was. Emily walked over and hugged him. Noah held her tight, feeling the anger slowly drain away, replaced by a familiar exhaustion. Your drawings aren't fantasies, Emily said into his chest. They're real. They could save people. Noah didn't know how to respond to that, so he just held his daughter and listened to the rain and tried not to think about the look of contempt in Victoria Hale's eyes. That night, after Emily went to bed, Noah stood in the garage staring at his drawings. He'd spent 3 years on them. 3 years pouring everything he had left into designs that nobody would ever see. Victoria was right about one thing. He had no resources, no connections, no way to make any of this real. He was nobody. He grabbed a marker and started to black out one of the designs, but stopped. His hand hovered over the paper, trembling. If he destroyed them, what did he have left? He put the marker down and walked to the small window overlooking the street. The rain had finally stopped. The sky was clearing, revealing stars he rarely saw through Riverside's light pollution. Somewhere out there, Victoria Hale was probably already back in her world of wealth and power, having completely forgotten the broken mechanic she'd humiliated. She'd probably tell the story at some corporate dinner, get a few laughs, move on with her life. While Noah stayed here, stuck, invisible. But what Victoria didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Emily had done something that night after hearing her father whisper to himself while sketching. She'd taken photos of his drawings with her phone and uploaded them to an online engineering forum with a simple caption. "My dad designed these to save lives. Can someone tell me if they're good?" Within 24 hours, that post would explode across the internet. Within 48 hours, elite engineers around the world would be fighting to identify the anonymous genius behind the revolutionary technology. And within 72 hours, Victoria Hale would see Noah Carter's designs again. This time not as scribbles on a garage wall, but as the most sophisticated automotive safety systems anyone had ever seen. But Noah didn't know any of that yet. He just stood at the window, feeling like the world's biggest failure, while his daughter slept and his impossible dreams covered the walls. What he couldn't see was that everything was about to change, because the woman who destroyed him today would soon become the only person willing to risk everything to stand beside him. And the designs she dismissed as desperate fantasies would bring down the most powerful corporations in America. But first, Noah had to survive one more night of not knowing whether any of it would ever matter. The morning after Victoria Hale walked out of his life, Noah woke up to 17 missed calls. He stared at his phone, confused and still half asleep. The numbers were all unknown. No voicemails, just call after call that had come in between 2 and 6 in the morning. He sat up in bed, his back aching from the cheap mattress, and checked his email. 43 new messages. His heart started pounding. Had something happened? Was Emily okay? He threw off the covers and rushed to her room, pushing the door open. She was still asleep, curled up with the stuffed bear Sarah had given her years ago. Relief flooded through him. Back in his room, Noah opened the first email. It was from someone claiming to represent a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. The subject line read, "Urgent, regarding your safety system designs." He deleted it, assuming it was spam. The second email was from an engineering professor at MIT. "I need to speak with you immediately about the collision prevention system posted online. This is not a joke. Please respond." Noah's hands went numb. The third email was from a researcher at a European Automotive Institute. The fourth was from someone at the Department of Transportation. The fifth was from a journalist at a major tech publication. Every single email mentioned his designs that were supposed to be private, that nobody except Victoria Hale had seen yesterday. Noah stood up so fast his chair fell over. He grabbed his laptop from the kitchen table and opened it with shaking hands, typing "automotive safety system designs" into the search bar. The results made his stomach drop. The top result was a forum post on Engineer Hub, one of the largest technical communities online. The post had been uploaded 18 hours ago. The title read, "Anonymous Engineers' Revolutionary Safety Systems, Real or Too Good to Be True?" Noah clicked it. The post contained photos, clear, detailed photos of every single design covering his garage walls. His handwriting, his specifications, his 3 years of work, now visible to anyone with an internet connection. Below the images was the caption, "My dad designed these to save lives. Can someone tell me if they're good?" Emily. Noah's vision blurred. His 10-year-old daughter had photographed his work and posted it online. She'd done it to help him, to prove that his designs mattered, and she'd just exposed everything he'd kept hidden for 3 years. He scrolled down to the comments. There were over 8,000 of them. "This is legitimate. Whoever designed these understands impact physics better than anyone I've worked with in 20 years. The predictive braking algorithm alone is worth millions. This isn't amateur work. I'm a senior engineer at a major automotive manufacturer, and I can confirm these systems are revolutionary. We need to find this person." Fake. Nobody designs this level of technology in a garage. Not fake. I ran the calculations. This is real. The debate raged through thousands of comments, but the consensus was clear. Engineers around the world were convinced that Noah's designs represented a massive breakthrough in automotive safety. Some were calling it the most important innovation in decades. Noah sat frozen, reading comment after comment, unable to process what was happening. His private work, The designs he'd created in grief and anger and desperation were now being analyzed by experts across the globe. His phone rang again. Another unknown number. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to Emily's room and gently shook her awake. Wake up, sweetheart." She blinked up at him, confused. "What time is it?" "Early. I need to ask you something." He kept his voice calm, even though panic was clawing at his chest. "Did you take pictures of my drawings?" Emily's face changed. Guilt flooded her expression. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I heard what that mean lady said, and I just wanted people to know you're not nobody. I wanted them to see how smart you are. Did you post them online?" She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Are you mad?" Noah wanted to be angry. He wanted to yell that she'd just exposed him to the world, that she'd put them both in danger, that she'd done something she should never have done without asking. But when he looked at his daughter's face, at the fear and love and desperate hope in her eyes, he couldn't. "No," he said quietly. "I'm not mad." "Really?" "Really. But we need to talk about this. Come on." He made her breakfast while explaining what had happened. Emily listened with growing horror as Noah described the emails, the forum post, the thousands of engineers now trying to identify who he was. "I just wanted to help," she said, her voice breaking. "I know. But those designs, they're dangerous for people to know about. Not because they're bad, but because they prove things that powerful people don't want proven." "What do you mean?" Noah sat down across from her, choosing his words carefully. "Remember how I told you Mom died because of a problem with her car's brakes?" Emily nodded. "The company that made those brakes knew they were dangerous. I tried to tell them, but they fired me instead. If these designs get out, if people start asking questions, that company could get in trouble. Big trouble." "Good. They should get in trouble. Maybe. But they're not going to let that happen without a fight. Right?" "Sure." Emily's expression hardened in a way that reminded Noah painfully of Sarah. "So what do we do?" Before Noah could answer, someone knocked on the garage door. Hard. They both froze. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Noah stood slowly and moved toward the door, gesturing for Emily to stay back. "Who is it?" he called out. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a reporter with TechWire. I need to speak with you about the designs posted on Engineer Hub." Noah's heart sank. "I don't have any comment. Mr. Carter, I know those are your designs. I verified the location through the forum post metadata. I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here because I think your story deserves to be told." "How did you find me so fast? I'm good at my job. Can we talk?" 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Noah looked back at Emily. She was gripping the edge of the table, her face pale. He wanted to send the reporter away to pretend none of this was happening, but he knew that wouldn't work. The internet had already identified him. More reporters would come. More questions would follow. He opened the door. Marcus Chen was young, maybe late 20s, wearing jeans and a worn jacket. He didn't look like the slick journalist Noah had seen on TV. He looked tired and hungry and determined. "Thank you for seeing me," Marcus said. "I know this must be overwhelming." "That's one word for it. Can I come in?" Noah hesitated, then stepped aside. Marcus entered the garage and immediately started looking around at the walls, at the designs that were now famous. His expression shifted from curiosity to genuine awe. "These are incredible," Marcus said quietly. "I've interviewed a lot of engineers, but I've never seen anything like this." "What do you want?" Marcus pulled out a notebook. "I want to know your story, who you are, why you designed these systems, why you're working out of a garage instead of for a major corporation." "I'm not interested in being interviewed." "Mr. Carter, whether you talk to me or not, this story is getting out. Right now, there are a dozen theories circulating online about who you are. Some people think you're a corporate whistleblower. Others think you're a foreign agent stealing technology. A few think you're a fraud. If you don't control the narrative, someone else will." Noah crossed his arms. "And you're offering to help me control it?" "I'm offering to tell the truth, but only if you want it told. The truth is complicated. The truth usually is." They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Noah sighed. I used to work for Meridian Automotive. I was a senior safety engineer. 3 years ago, I discovered a defect in their braking system that could cause catastrophic failures. I reported it through proper channels. They buried it, fired me, and destroyed my career. 6 months later, my wife died in an accident caused by that exact defect. Marcus stopped writing. Jesus. I'm sorry. They called it driver error. Paid off the right people. Made sure nobody looked too close. I couldn't prove what I knew. Couldn't get anyone to listen. So I started over. Started designing systems that could prevent what happened to Sarah from happening to anyone else. And nobody wanted them? Nobody would even look at them. I'm blacklisted. The minute a company hears my name, the conversation ends. Marcus was writing furiously now. Have you tried going public with the Meridian information? With what evidence? They erased everything. I have my memory and my word. And my word means nothing anymore. It might mean something now. These designs prove you know what you're talking about. If you go public, I'll get destroyed again, or worse. Or you might finally get justice. Noah laughed bitterly. Justice? You think justice exists for people like me? Meridian is worth $40 billion. They have lawyers, politicians, media connections. I have a failing garage and a daughter to protect. I can't fight them. You might not have to fight alone. Before Noah could respond, his phone rang again. He glanced at the screen. The call was from a New York area code with a corporate prefix he recognized, Hale Dynamics. His blood went cold. I need to take this, Noah said. Marcus nodded and stepped back, but he didn't leave. Noah answered the call. Mr. Carter? The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. My name is Jennifer Ross. I'm calling on behalf of Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Dynamics. Miss, Hale would like to speak with you at your earliest convenience regarding the designs that were posted online yesterday. Tell Ms. Hale I'm not interested. Mr. Carter, I understand you and Ms. Hale had an unfortunate encounter. She asked me to convey her apologies for any offense. Apologies? Noah's voice rose. She humiliated me in front of my daughter. She called my life's work desperate fantasies. Now she wants to talk? Ms. Hale's perspective has changed significantly since yesterday. She's reviewed your designs extensively with our engineering team. They're legitimate, Mr. Carter. Revolutionary, in fact. Ms. Hale would like to discuss a potential partnership. I'm not interested in partnerships with people who think I'm nobody. Ms. Hale acknowledges she misjudged you. She's prepared to offer substantial compensation for your time and expertise. Money doesn't fix what she said. Perhaps not, but it might help you actually implement these systems. You design technology that could save lives, Mr. Carter. Don't let pride stop you from making that real. The words hit harder than Noah wanted to admit. He'd spent 3 years designing systems nobody would ever use. Now someone was offering him a chance to change that, and his first instinct was to say no out of wounded pride. But Emily was watching him. Emily, who'd posted his designs because she believed in him, who'd seen her father dismissed and humiliated and decided the world needed to know the truth. When does she want to meet? Noah asked. Today, if possible. Ms. Hale can come to you. She knows where I am. She'll arrive this afternoon at 2. Does that work? Noah wanted to say no. Wanted to tell Victoria Hale to go to hell. But he thought about Sarah, about the accident that shouldn't have happened, about all the other families who might avoid the same fate if he just swallowed his anger. Fine, 2 o'clock. He hung up. Marcus was staring at him. Was that Victoria Hale? The billionaire CEO? She's coming here this afternoon. Why? Apparently she wants to apologize for calling me a nobody and offer me money. Are you going to take it? But it was mommy. I don't know. Probably not. But I'll hear her out. Marcus flipped his notebook closed. Mr. Carter, I want to write this story. The engineer who wouldn't give up. The designs that could change everything. The billionaire who dismissed you and now wants you back. It's compelling. It's also my life, not a story. Every life is a story. The question is, who gets to tell it? Noah looked at the reporter, at his worn jacket and hungry eyes, and recognized something familiar. The desperation of someone who needed this to matter, who needed to prove themselves. If I let you write this, Noah said slowly, you tell the truth, all of it, including what Meridian did. including why I'm really here. They'll come after you. They're already coming after me. At least this way people will know why. Marcus extended his hand. You have my word. Yeah. They shook, and Noah wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life or the smartest decision he'd had in years. Maybe both. After Marcus left, Noah spent the next few hours in a fog. More calls came, more emails, several companies requesting meetings, a law firm offering to represent him, someone claiming to be from the military wanting to discuss his collision prevention system. The world had discovered him overnight, and he had no idea how to handle it. At noon, Emily asked if she could go to her friend's house. Noah almost said no, wanting to keep her close, but he realized she'd be safer away from the garage when Victoria arrived. Whatever happened this afternoon, Emily didn't need to witness it. After she left, Noah tried to work on the Honda Civic, but his hands were shaking too badly. He gave up and just stood in his garage, staring at his designs, wondering how everything had spiraled so completely out of control. At exactly 2 o'clock, the black SUVs returned. This time there were 4 of them. They pulled up in the same formation as yesterday, blocking the entrance. Noah watched them through the garage door, his stomach churning. Victoria Hale stepped out of the lead vehicle wearing a different suit, this one dark blue. Her security guards flanked her again, but this time she carried a leather briefcase. She walked toward the garage with the same confident stride, but something was different. Her expression wasn't contemptuous. It was focused. She stopped at the threshold just like yesterday. Mr. Carter, Ms. Hale, thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't agree, I just didn't say no, bam. Victoria's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. Fair enough. May I come in? Noah stepped aside. She entered, and her guard stayed outside. She looked around the garage exactly as she had yesterday, but this time her gaze on his designs wasn't mocking. It was calculating. I owe you an apology, Victoria said. What I said yesterday was inappropriate and unfair. I judged you without understanding your situation or your capabilities. You called my work desperate fantasies. I was wrong. You told my daughter I was wasting my life. Victoria's expression tightened. That was cruel. I'm sorry. Are you sorry because you were wrong, or because my designs turned out to be valuable? She considered the question. Both, probably. Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Victoria set her briefcase on Noah's workbench. I spent all night reviewing your designs with my senior engineering team. We ran simulations, stress tests, compatibility analyses. Your predictive braking system alone is more advanced than anything currently in production. The collision detection algorithm is genuinely revolutionary, and your rollover prevention mechanism solves problems we've been trying to crack for 5 years. And I want to license them, all of them. I'm prepared to offer you $15 million up front, plus 5% royalties on every vehicle manufactured with your systems installed. The number was so large it didn't feel real. $15 million. Enough to solve every problem Noah had, to secure Emily's future, to never worry about money again. He almost laughed. No. Victoria blinked. Excuse me? I said no. Mr. Carter, do you understand what I'm offering? This is life-changing money. I understand perfectly, and I'm still saying no. Why? Because I didn't design these systems to make rich people richer. I designed them to save lives. Your company manufactures 70% of automotive systems in North America. That means 70% of cars depend on technology you prioritize based on profit margins, not safety. That's not fair. Isn't it? How many safety features have you delayed or eliminated because they'd cut into your bottom line? Victoria's jaw tightened. We follow all regulatory requirements. Regulations are minimum standards written by people your industry lobbies. They're not about safety. They're about liability. You don't know anything about how my company operates. You don't know. I know exactly how your company operates. I worked in this industry, remember? I know how corporations decide what's worth protecting and what's acceptable loss. I know how they calculate whether it's cheaper to implement safety systems or pay out wrongful death lawsuits. I know, because I used to be part of that system. Victoria stared at him. What happened to you? What do you mean? You're angry, understandably, but there's something specific. Something that turned you from an engineer into this. Noah felt his control slipping. My wife died because Meridian Automotive chose profit over safety. I tried to stop it. They destroyed me instead. So don't stand in my garage and pretend you're different. Your industry killed my wife. And I'm not giving you my technology so you can keep doing the same thing. The garage fell silent. Victoria's expression had changed. The corporate mask was cracking, revealing something underneath. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. Meridian Automotive, she said quietly. I remember hearing about an engineer they fired 3 years ago. There were rumors he'd tried to fabricate evidence about a defect. I didn't fabricate anything. I believe you. Why? Because my designs are valuable now? Because I've seen what corporations do to protect themselves. I've done some of those things myself. Noah wasn't expecting that. What? Victoria walked over to one of his designs, studying it. 3 years ago, my father died and left me Hale Dynamics. I was 27. Nobody took me seriously. The board tried to remove me. Competitors circled like sharks. I had to become ruthless to survive. I made decisions that protected the company but hurt people. Fired whistleblowers. Buried problematic reports. Prioritized shareholders over ethics. She turned to face him. I became exactly the kind of person you hate. Then why are you here? Because I'm tired of being that person, and because your designs forced me to realize something. I've spent 3 years building an empire based on compromises and justifications. But last night, when my engineers explained what your technology could do, I had to ask myself the question I've been avoiding. What question? What's the point of building something powerful if it doesn't actually protect anyone? Noah didn't know what to say to that. Victoria Hale, the billionaire who'd dismissed him as a nobody, was standing in his garage admitting she'd become someone she didn't want to be. If that's true, Noah said carefully, then why are you offering to buy my designs? That's exactly the same system. You pay me, you own the technology, you decide how it's used, nothing changes. You're right. That's why I'm not actually here to buy them. Then why are you here? Victoria opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. I'm here to offer you a partnership. Not as a licensee, but as a co-developer. You keep full control over how the systems are designed and implemented. I provide the resources, manufacturing infrastructure, and market access to make them real. We split the profits 50-50, but more importantly, we split the decisions. You make sure the technology stays true to its purpose. I make sure it reaches people who need it. Noah took the folder. Inside were contracts, technical proposals, and detailed implementation plans. He scanned them, his engineering mind automatically analyzing the specifications. This would require complete transparency, Noah said. No hidden compromises. No cost-cutting measures that reduce effectiveness. Agreed. And I'd need independent verification. Third-party testing to confirm the systems perform exactly as designed. Already written into the contract. Why would you agree to all this? It limits your control. Victoria smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine. Because you're right. I've been building an empire based on control, and it's made me into someone I don't recognize. Maybe it's time to try building something based on trust instead. Noah looked at the contracts, at Victoria Hale, at his designs covering the walls. This morning he'd been a nobody working in a failing garage. Now he was being offered a partnership with one of the most powerful people in the automotive industry. It felt like a trap. But it also felt like the opportunity he'd been waiting for. I need time to think about this, Noah said. Of course. Take whatever time you need. And I want to be clear about something. If we do this, it's not about money. It's about making sure what happened to my wife never happens to anyone else. I understand. Do you? Because yesterday you told me I was nobody. Today you're offering me millions. That kind of change happens because my work is valuable, not because you suddenly developed a conscience. Victoria's expression hardened slightly. You're right. I didn't come here out of pure altruism. Your designs are valuable, extremely valuable, but value doesn't negate purpose. We can both benefit from this while still doing something meaningful. Or you can steal my designs and cut me out entirely. I could, but I won't. How do I know that? You don't. You have to trust me. Noah almost laughed. Trust? You just admitted you've spent 3 years being exactly the kind of person who would steal from people like me. Yes, which means I know exactly how that story ends. You become powerful and hollow and surrounded by people who hate you. I don't want that anymore. They stood facing each other, the air between them charged with tension and possibility and mutual suspicion. Finally, Noah said, I'll read the contracts. I'll talk to a lawyer. If everything checks out, maybe we can talk again. That's all I'm asking. Victoria turned to leave, then paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, she said, your daughter was right. These designs could save lives. Don't let your anger at me stop you from making that happen. Then she was gone, her SUVs pulling away in formation. Noah stood alone in his garage, holding contracts worth millions and wondering if he'd just been given a lifeline or walked into an elaborate trap. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen. Article goes live in 2 hours. Just wanted you to know. Noah's heart sank. The reporter was publishing the story, which meant everyone would know who he was, what had happened to Sarah, why he'd ended up here. His privacy was about to disappear completely. Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. We need to talk about your article. Call me immediately. This is not a request. The area code was from Meridian Automotive's headquarters. They knew. They'd seen the forum post, tracked down his identity, and now they knew he was about to go public. Noah sat down heavily on his rolling chair. Everything was happening too fast. The exposure, the attention, Victoria's offer, Meridian's threats. 24 hours ago, he'd been invisible. Now he was at the center of something he couldn't control. Emily came home at 4, bursting through the door with excitement. Dad, Megan's mom saw the forum post. She said you're famous. Noah managed a smile. Not famous, sweetie. Just getting attention I didn't ask for. Is that bad? I don't know yet. Emily sat down beside him, her expression turning serious. Did I mess everything up? No, you didn't mess anything up. But people are calling and reporters want to talk to you and, Noah took her hands. You did something brave. Something I should have done years ago. You believed in me when nobody else did. That's not messing up. That's incredible. Tears formed in Emily's eyes. I just wanted people to know you're smart. They know now. Are you scared? Noah thought about Victoria's offer, about Meridian's threats, about the article about to publish his story to the world. Yeah, he admitted. I'm terrified. What are we going to do? Noah looked at his daughter, at Sarah's eyes staring back at him, and made a decision. We're going to do what we should have done 3 years ago. We're going to tell the truth. At 6 p.m., Marcus Chen's article went live on TechWire. The headline read, The engineer they tried to destroy is back with technology that could save millions. Within an hour, it had 50,000 shares. Within 2 hours, every major news outlet was picking up the story. Within 3 hours, Meridian Automotive issued a statement denying all allegations and threatening legal action. And within 4 hours, Noah Carter stopped being nobody. He became the man who wouldn't stay silent. The man who designed the impossible. The man who refused to let his wife's death be meaningless. But he also became a target. And the people who'd destroyed him once were already planning how to do it again. The death threats started on day 3. Noah found the first one slipped under his garage door at dawn. No envelope, just a single sheet of paper with a typed message. Drop this, or your daughter loses her father. He stood there holding it, his hands shaking, reading it over and over, like the words might change if he stared long enough. They didn't. He called the police. They sent an officer who looked bored and wrote a report that Noah knew would disappear into a filing cabinet somewhere. Probably just internet trolls him up, the officer said. You've been getting a lot of attention. Brings out the crazies. Noah didn't mention that the threat specifically referenced Emily. That whoever wrote it knew he had a daughter. That they'd been to his garage while he and Emily slept 20 feet away. The second threat came via email that afternoon. Meridian Automotive doesn't forget. Neither should you. The third was a phone call at midnight. Heavy breathing, then a voice. We know where she goes to school. Noah stopped sleeping after that. He sat in the garage with a tire iron across his lap, jumping at every sound, watching the door like something might burst through it. Emily asked why he looked so tired. He lied and said he'd been working on a new design. She didn't believe him, but she stopped asking. Victoria called on day 4. "Have you read the contracts?" she asked. "I've been busy." "Busy with what?" Noah looked at the stack of threat letters he'd collected. 12 so far. "Dealing with some problems." What kind of problems?" "The kind that happen when you make powerful people angry." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you being threatened?" "Why do you care?" "Because we're potential partners. Your safety is my concern." "Since when?" "Since always. If we're doing this." "Noah, if someone is threatening you, I can help. I have resources." "I don't need your resources. I need you to leave me alone so I can figure this out." He hung up before she could respond. Marcus Chen published a follow-up article that same day. This one focused on Meridian Automotive's history of safety violations, buried reports, and suspicious settlements. He dug up court records, interviewed former employees, and connected patterns of negligence spanning over a decade. The article made it clear that Noah's wife wasn't the only victim. There were dozens of others, maybe hundreds, all hidden behind non-disclosure agreements and corporate lawyers. Meridian's stock dropped 8% in a single day. By evening, Noah had 17 new voicemails from reporters, lawyers, and people claiming to have information about other cover-ups. He listened to 3 of them before his head started pounding, and he had to stop. One message stood out. A woman who identified herself as Patricia Reeves, former senior counsel at Meridian Automotive. "Mr. Carter, I know what they did to you. I was there. I have documents they think were destroyed. Call me." Noah saved the message and tried to decide if it was genuine or another trap. His phone rang again. This time it was Victoria, and she didn't wait for him to speak. "Turn on your TV, channel 7. "What?" "Just do it." Noah grabbed the remote and switched on the ancient television mounted in the corner of the garage. Channel 7 was showing a press conference. The banner at the bottom read, "Meridian Automotive CEO responds to safety allegations." A man in his 60s stood behind a podium, gray-haired and wearing an expensive suit. Richard Bowman, Meridian's CEO. Noah recognized him from the corporate website. This was the man who'd signed off on his termination letter 3 years ago. "These allegations are completely false," Bowman was saying, his voice smooth and confident. "Mr. Carter was dismissed for performance issues and has spent the last 3 years making baseless accusations to explain his own failures. We've cooperated fully with all regulatory investigations and found no defects in our braking systems. This is nothing more than a disgruntled former employee attempting to damage our reputation." A reporter shouted a question. "What about the court record showing multiple settlements related to brake failures?" "We settle nuisance lawsuits regularly. It's more cost-effective than lengthy litigation. Settlement does not equal admission of fault." Did you know about the defect Mr. Carter reported? There was no defect. Our engineers reviewed his claims thoroughly and found them to be unfounded. Mr. Carter's own instability is well documented. Noah felt his vision blur with rage. They were calling him unstable, suggesting he'd made everything up because he couldn't handle being fired. Victoria's voice came through the phone. "Are you watching this?" "Yeah. They're trying to destroy your credibility before you can do any more damage." "I know what they're doing." "Noah, listen to me. You can't fight this alone. They have unlimited resources and they'll bury you. Again. So what do you want me to do? Give up? Pretend my wife didn't die because these people chose profit over safety? No, I want you to let me help you fight them properly." "Why? What's in it for you?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, a lot. If we expose Meridian, their market share collapses and Hail Dynamics benefits. But that's not the only reason." "Then what is?" "Ma, because I've done what they're doing. I've protected my company at the expense of people who deserved better, and I'm tired of being that person." Noah watched Richard Bowman deflect another question. His expression never wavering, his corporate mask perfect. This was a man who'd destroyed lives and slept fine at night, who'd built an empire on compromises and casualties. "If I agree to work with you," Noah said slowly, "I need to know you won't become him. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, but I can promise I'll try to do better. It wasn't enough, but it was more honesty than Noah had expected from a billionaire CEO. I'll think about it, he said, and hung up. The press conference ended with Bowman taking one more question. A young reporter in the back asked, "Are you planning legal action against Mr. Carter?" Bowman smiled. It was the kind of smile sharks probably gave before they bit. "We're exploring all options to protect our reputation and our shareholders. The threat was clear. Come after us, and we'll destroy you with lawyers you can't afford to fight." Noah turned off the TV and sat in the silence of his garage, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. He'd wanted the truth to matter. He'd wanted justice for Sarah, but he hadn't understood what it would cost. Emily came home from school and found him sitting in the dark. "Dad, why are the lights off?" "Just thinking." She turned them on and looked at him with concern too mature for a 10-year-old. "Did something happen?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "You're lying." Noah almost denied it, but Emily's expression stopped him. She wasn't a child anymore. She'd lost her mother. She'd watched her father struggle for 3 years. She'd been humiliated by Victoria Hale and posted his designs online anyway because she believed they mattered. She deserved the truth. "Some people are angry at me for talking about what Meridian did," Noah said carefully. "They're trying to make me stop." "The people who made the bad breaks?" "Yeah." "Are they threatening you?" "Dad, I'm not stupid. I see how you keep checking the door. I know you're not sleeping. Are we in danger?" Noah wanted to lie, to protect her from this, but Emily was staring at him with Sarah's eyes, demanding honesty. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe." "What are we going to do?" "I'm figuring that out." Emily sat down beside him on the concrete floor. "Are you going to stop? Are you going to let them win?" "I'm thinking about it. Mom wouldn't want you to stop." The words hit like a punch. You can't know that." "Yes, I can. Mom always said if something was wrong, you had to fix it, even if it was hard. She said that's what brave people do." Noah's throat tightened. "Your mom also would have wanted me to keep you safe." "I am safe. You're here. And that lady Victoria offered to help, right?" "You don't trust Victoria. Remember what she said?" "I remember. But maybe she was wrong. Maybe people can change." Noah looked at his daughter and wondered when she'd become wiser than him. Before he could respond, someone knocked on the garage door. Noah's entire body went rigid. Emily noticed and grabbed his arm. "It's okay," Noah said, not feeling okay at all. "Stay here." He grabbed the tire iron and approached the door. Who is it?" "Patricia Reeves. I left you a voicemail earlier." Noah opened the door a crack. A woman in her 50s stood outside wearing a business suit and holding a briefcase. She looked tired and nervous and very real. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," Patricia said, "but I couldn't discuss this over the phone." "Discuss what?" "What Meridian did to you, what they're still doing. I was there for all of it, and I have proof." Noah studied her face, looking for deception. "Why would you help me?" "Because I helped them bury it the first time. I wrote the legal strategy that got you fired. I drafted the non-disclosure agreements that silenced the victims' families. I built the system that protected Meridian from accountability." Patricia's voice cracked slightly. "I did my job very well, and I've regretted it every day since." "What changed?" "My daughter bought a Meridian vehicle last year. She has a 2-year-old son. I told her to get a different model, but I couldn't explain why without violating my NDA. 3 months ago, she had a brake failure, almost crashed into a school bus. She and my grandson survived, but barely." Noah felt something shift in his chest. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, be angry. I am. Angry enough to risk everything to help you prove what they did. If you help me, they'll destroy you too." "They've already destroyed me. I just didn't realize it until I watched my daughter crying in a hospital room while my grandson slept, and I couldn't tell her why I knew it would happen." Noah opened the door wider. Patricia entered, and Emily watched from across the garage with wide eyes. Patricia set her briefcase on the workbench and opened it. Inside were hundreds of pages of documents, all neatly organized. Internal memos, Patricia said, pulling out folders. Engineering reports that were never filed with regulators. Emails between executives discussing cost-benefit analyses of recalls versus wrongful death payouts. Settlement agreements with confidentiality clauses. 3 years of evidence that Meridian knew about the defect and chose to hide it. Noah stared at the documents like they might disappear. Why didn't you come forward before, Rahan?
Fear, cowardice. Tell yourself enough times that you're just doing your job, and eventually you believe it, until something forces you to see what you've really been doing. They'll sue you.
Criminal charges, maybe. Probably, but I'd rather lose everything trying to fix this than keep everything knowing what I've done. Noah picked up one of the memos. It was dated 2 months before Sarah's accident. The subject line read, "Projected liability exposure, braking system defect." The document coldly calculated that paying out settlements would be cheaper than a full recall. His hands started shaking. "This is enough," Noah said quietly. "This is enough to bury them. It's enough to start. But you need more than documents. You need someone with enough power and resources to force the investigation they've been avoiding. Someone like Victoria Hale." Patricia looked surprised. "You know her?" "She's offered to partner with me. I haven't decided yet." "What?" "Decide yes. Hale Dynamics has the legal team and political connections to make sure this doesn't get buried again. Without someone like her backing you, Meridian will bury these documents the same way they buried your initial report." Noah looked at Emily, who was still watching from across the garage, then at Patricia, who'd risked everything to bring him proof, then at the documents that could finally give Sarah's death meaning. He pulled out his phone and called Victoria. She answered on the first ring. "Noah, I need to meet tonight, and I need you to bring lawyers." "What happened?" "I'll explain when you get here, but Victoria, if we do this, there's no going back. Meridian will come after both of us with everything they have." "Good," Victoria said, and Noah heard something fierce in her voice. "I'm tired of people like them thinking they're untouchable." 2 hours later, Victoria arrived with 3 lawyers and her head of security. They set up in Noah's garage like it was a war room, spreading Patricia's documents across every available surface, cross-referencing dates and incidents, building a timeline of corruption that spanned over a decade. One of the lawyers, a sharp woman named Angela Torres, kept shaking her head as she read. "This is damning," Angela said. "I've never seen documentation this comprehensive. If we can verify authenticity, this is enough for criminal charges. They'll claim the documents are fake," another lawyer said. "Then we get independent forensic analysis. Document metadata, paper trail verification, witness testimony corroboration. We make this bulletproof." Victoria stood beside Noah, watching her team work. "Are you sure about this? Once we file, there's no stopping it." "I'm sure, but I need to know something first." "What?" "Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's just about being a better person. Nobody risks billions for redemption." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "My father built Hale Dynamics from nothing. He was brilliant and ruthless, and he taught me that power was the only thing that mattered. When he died, I inherited his empire and his philosophy. I became exactly what he wanted me to be. And 3 months ago, I found out he'd known about safety issues in some of our systems. Nothing catastrophic, but enough that people could have been hurt. He'd buried the reports because fixing them would have been expensive. When I discovered what he'd done, I had to make a choice. Protect his legacy and continue his pattern, or admit that the man I worshipped had been willing to sacrifice lives for profit." "What did you choose?" "I fixed the problems, issued a voluntary recall, cost the company $200 million, and tanked our stock for weeks. The board tried to remove me. I had to fight to keep control." "Why are you telling me this?" Victoria looked at him directly. "Because when you accused me of being exactly like the people who killed your wife, you were right. I was. And I spent 3 months trying to convince myself I wasn't. Then you walked into my life with designs that could save millions, and I realized I had a choice. Keep being the person my father created, or become someone who actually deserves the power I have." Noah studied her face, looking for deception. All he saw was exhaustion and determination. "If we do this," Noah said, "I'm not just going after Meridian. I'm going after every company that's done what they did. Every corporation that's chosen profit over safety. That might include your company. I know. You might lose everything. I've already lost everything that matters. I'm trying to get it back. They stared at each other across the garage. Two people who'd been on opposite sides and were now betting everything on an alliance neither fully trusted. Angela Torres interrupted. We need to move fast. Meridian is already preparing their counterattack. I'd estimate we have 3 days before they file a defamation lawsuit that'll tie this up for years. So what do we do? Noah asked. We go on offense. There's a global automotive summit in Chicago next week. Every major manufacturer will be there, along with regulators, media, and industry analysts. If we can present this evidence publicly at the summit, it'll be too big to bury. They'll never let me speak. They will if you're there as my guest, Victoria said. Hail Dynamics is one of the summit's primary sponsors. I can get you a speaking slot. They'll try to stop it. Probably, which is why we need to make sure we're ready for whatever they throw at us. Over the next 3 days, Noah barely slept. He worked with Victoria's legal team to verify Patricia's documents, organized the evidence into a presentation that would devastate Meridian, and prepared himself for the moment when he'd finally tell the truth in front of the entire industry. The death threats intensified. More letters, more phone calls. Someone slashed the tires on Noah's truck. Another time, he found his garage door spray-painted with the word liar in red letters. Victoria insisted on providing security. 2 ex-military guards who looked like they could break someone in half with their bare hands stationed themselves outside Noah's garage around the clock. Emily thought they were cool. Noah thought they were a reminder that he'd pulled his daughter into something dangerous. On day 6, Meridian filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit against both Noah and Victoria. The media exploded with coverage. Half the articles painted Noah as a crusading hero. The other half suggested he was an obsessed former employee making dangerous accusations. Victoria's stock price dropped another 12%. Marcus Chen published a third article detailing the lawsuit and the evidence Noah had gathered. The article went viral. Public opinion started shifting. Social media erupted with people sharing stories of their own accidents, their own suspicions, their own experiences with corporations choosing profit over safety. The movement grew faster than anyone expected. Hashtags trended. Protests formed outside Meridian's headquarters. Families who'd lost loved ones in accidents started demanding investigations. Richard Bowman appeared on television again, looking less confident this time. We stand by our products and our record. These accusations are reckless and irresponsible. But his voice wavered, just slightly, just enough that people noticed. 2 days before the summit, Patricia Reeves called Noah. They know I'm helping you, she said, her voice shaking. I've been served with a cease and desist. They're threatening criminal charges for violating my NDA. What are you going to do? What I should have done 3 years ago. I'm testifying, publicly, at the summit. Patricia, they'll destroy you. I know, but I helped them destroy people like you. I owe this. Noah felt something break open in his chest. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just make sure their deaths meant something. What? The night before the summit, Noah sat with Emily in their tiny apartment. She was supposed to stay with a friend while he was in Chicago, but she'd been crying on and off all evening. What if something happens to you? Emily asked. Nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. Those people are angry. What if they hurt you? Noah pulled her close. Em, I need to do this. For your mom. For all the other families. But if you want me to stop, if you're too scared, I will. You're more important than any of this. Emily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Mom wouldn't want you to stop. Are you sure? Yeah. She'd want you to be brave, even if it's scary. Noah held his daughter and wondered how someone so young could be so strong. The next morning, he boarded a private jet Victoria had sent. The interior was more luxurious than anywhere Noah had ever been. Leather seats, polished wood, a level of wealth so extreme it felt obscene. Victoria was already on board, working on a laptop. She looked up when Noah entered. Ready? No. Good. People who think they're ready usually aren't. They flew to Chicago in relative silence. Victoria worked on her presentation. Noah stared out the window and tried to calm his racing heart. When they landed, a convoy of vehicles was waiting. They drove to a hotel near the convention center where the summit was being held. Security was everywhere. Apparently, Victoria's team had received credible threats. In Noah's hotel room, someone had laid out a suit. Expensive, perfectly tailored, his exact size. He put it on and barely recognized himself in the mirror. He looked like someone important, someone who mattered. He wondered if it was enough. That evening, Victoria knocked on his door. She was wearing a black dress and carrying a folder. "Last chance to back out," she said. "I'm not backing out." "Good. Because I need you to understand something. When you go out there tomorrow, you're going to be facing the most powerful people in this industry. They're going to try to discredit you, embarrass you, make you look unstable. And they're very good at it. I know." "Do you?" "Noah, these people have destroyed careers for sport. They'll twist every word you say. They'll bring up your firing, your wife's death, anything they can use to make you look unreliable." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to be ready, and because I need you to know that no matter what happens out there, I'm standing beside you. They come after you. They come after me too." Noah looked at this woman who'd insulted him, dismissed him, and was now willing to risk everything to help him. "I still don't understand why you're doing this," he said. Victoria smiled. "Neither do I, honestly, but maybe that's the point. Maybe doing the right thing isn't supposed to make sense." The next morning, they arrived at the summit to chaos. Protesters filled the streets outside the convention center. Some supported Noah. Others held signs calling him a fraud. Media vans lined the block. Police in riot gear stood between the crowds. Inside, the convention center was packed. Thousands of industry executives, engineers, investors, and journalists filled the main auditorium. Noah had never seen so many people in one place. Victoria led him to a private room backstage. Patricia was already there, looking terrified and determined. "You okay?" Noah asked her. "No, but I'm doing this anyway." Angela Torres entered with her legal team. "Meridian knows what's happening. They've requested your speaking slot be canceled. The summit organizers are considering it." "Can they do that?" Noah asked. "They're sponsors, too. They're threatening to pull funding if you speak." "So what do we do?" Victoria's expression hardened. "We speak anyway. I'm the keynote. I'll yield my time to Noah. They can't stop the keynote without shutting down the entire summit. They might try. Let them. The media is watching. If they silence us now, it proves everything we're saying is true." An hour later, Noah stood in the wings of the stage, listening to the drone of industry presentations. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. His hands were shaking, his mouth was dry. This was it, the moment everything had been building toward. 3 years of grief and anger and impossible designs were about to collide with the people who'd tried to bury him. Victoria appeared beside him. "It's time." They walked onto the stage together. The auditorium fell silent. Thousands of faces stared up at them. Noah could see Richard Bowman sitting in the front row, his expression cold and calculating. Victoria stepped to the microphone. "My name is Victoria Hale," she said, her voice carrying through the massive space. "Most of you know me as the CEO of Hale Dynamics. Some of you know me as someone who's prioritized profit over principle. Today, I'm here to tell you that needs to change, and the man standing beside me is going to explain why." She stepped aside. Noah approached the microphone. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He stared out at the sea of faces, at the cameras broadcasting live to millions of people, at Richard Bowman, watching him with barely concealed hatred. Then he thought of Sarah, of Emily, of all the families who'd lost someone because people chose money over safety, and he began to speak. Noah's voice cracked on the first sentence. 3 years ago, my wife Sarah died in a car accident that shouldn't have happened." The microphone amplified the tremor in his words. He gripped the podium to steady himself, acutely aware of thousands of eyes watching him, judging whether he was credible or crazy. Richard Bowman sat motionless in the front row, his expression unreadable. "The official report said driver error," Noah continued, forcing his voice to steady. "But I knew better. I'd spent 2 years as a senior safety engineer at Meridian Automotive. I discovered a defect in their braking system, a defect I reported through every proper channel available to me." Someone in the audience coughed. The sound echoed through the silent auditorium. "They fired me, called me unstable, Destroyed my reputation so thoroughly that no company in this industry would hire me. And 6 months later, my wife's car failed at an intersection because of the exact defect I'd tried to expose. Noah pulled up the first slide on the massive screen behind him. It was an internal Meridian memo dated 4 months before Sarah's death. The subject line read, Cost Analysis. Brake System Recall versus Projected Liability. This document, Noah said, calculates that paying wrongful death settlements would cost Meridian approximately $43 million over 5 years. A full recall would cost $78 million. The recommendation was to avoid the recall. The auditorium erupted. Voices rose in shock and anger. Journalists started typing frantically. Camera flashes went off like lightning. Richard Bowman stood up. "This is a fabrication," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "That document is either fake or taken completely out of context. We will not sit here and allow this disgruntled former employee to slander our company with manufactured evidence." Noah felt his heart racing, but Victoria stepped forward to the second microphone. "Mr. Bowman," she said calmly, "are you suggesting that Patricia Reeves, your own former senior counsel, manufactured documents from your company's internal legal files?" Bowman's face went pale. "What?" Patricia walked onto the stage. Her legs were shaking, but her voice was steady. "My name is Patricia Reeves. I worked for Meridian Automotive for 11 years as senior legal counsel. I wrote many of the memos you're about to see. I helped bury evidence of the brake defect. I drafted the non-disclosure agreements that silenced victims' families. And I'm here today to testify that every document Mr. Carter is presenting is authentic." The auditorium exploded into chaos. Reporters were shouting questions. Executives were standing, arguing with each other. Security guards moved toward the stage, but Victoria's own security team stepped forward to block them. Noah pulled up the next slide. An email chain between Meridian executives discussing specific accidents and whether they could be attributed to the brake defect without triggering an investigation. "This exchange," Noah said, his voice growing stronger, "shows that Meridian knew about 17 separate incidents involving brake failures in the 18 months before my wife died. They paid settlements ranging from $50,000 to $2 million to keep the families quiet." "This is illegal," someone shouted from the back. "You can't present confidential documents without—" "These documents were illegally concealed," Angela Torres said, stepping to Patricia's microphone. "I'm Angela Torres, representing Mr. Carter and Ms. Hale. These materials are being disclosed under whistleblower protection statutes. Meridian Automotive's attempts to suppress safety information constitute criminal negligence." Bowman was shouting now, his corporate composure completely shattered. "This is a setup. You ambushed us with fabricated evidence and a conspiracy." "Is my daughter's near-death experience fabricated?" Patricia said, her voice breaking. She was driving a 2023 Meridian sedan when her brakes failed on a highway off-ramp. She has a 2-year-old son in the car. They survived by pure luck, not because your vehicles are safe. Noah pulled up another slide. This one showed a photograph of Sarah's accident report, with key phrases highlighted. Driver failed to maintain control. No mechanical defects found. Speed estimated above safe limits. This is what Meridian's investigation concluded about my wife's death, Noah said, but the brake system was never independently examined. The vehicle was processed through a Meridian-affiliated repair facility and then sold for parts before any third-party analysis could be conducted. Bryce ye bondage setzen. He showed another document. A purchase order from Meridian to the salvage company dated 3 days after Sarah's death for the immediate destruction of her vehicle. They destroyed the evidence, Noah said, just like they've destroyed evidence in dozens of other cases. The auditorium had descended into pandemonium. Half the audience was on their feet, shouting. Journalists were streaming toward the exits to file stories. Several Meridian executives were trying to push toward the stage, but security held them back. Victoria stepped forward again. I'm Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Dynamics. I'm here to announce that we are severing all manufacturing partnerships with Meridian Automotive, effective immediately. We will not associate our company with an organization that has demonstrated such blatant disregard for human life. You'll bankrupt your own company, someone shouted. You'll bankrupt your own. Then I'll bankrupt it doing the right thing, Victoria shot back. Meridian represents 18% of our annual revenue. I'm willing to lose every dollar of it rather than be complicit in their negligence. Noah saw Bowman's face twist with rage. The man was staring at Victoria like she'd just stabbed him, which in a business sense, she had. Cutting ties with Meridian would cost Hale Dynamics hundreds of millions, possibly more. Furthermore, Victoria continued, Hale Dynamics is pledging $200 million to establish an independent automotive safety research center. Noah Carter will lead it. His designs will be made available free of charge to any manufacturer willing to implement them with full transparency and third-party verification. The room went silent. People stared at Victoria like she'd lost her mind. Noah stared at her too. They hadn't discussed this. She'd just committed $200 million and put him in charge without asking him first. Victoria glanced at him and shrugged slightly, as if to say, I'm improvising here. One of the summit organizers rushed onto the stage, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked like he might have a heart attack. This session is over, he said into the microphone. We're shutting this down immediately. This is not the forum for... For what? Patricia interrupted. For the truth? For holding corporations accountable for killing people? For ambushing our sponsors with inflammatory accusations? They're not accusations, Noah said. They're facts. And you can shut down this session, but you can't shut down the investigation that's about to happen. Because I've already forwarded complete copies of this evidence to the Department of Transportation, the FBI, and every major media outlet in the country. Bull? That wasn't entirely true. Angela's team had sent the documents to regulators, but Noah was betting that claiming wider distribution would make it impossible to contain. The organizer looked panicked. You can't just... I already did. Bowman pushed past security and stormed onto the stage. His face was red, veins bulging in his neck. He got right in Noah's face. You've just destroyed your life, Bowman hissed. Everything you have, everything you care about, I will take from you. I will sue you into oblivion. I will make sure you never work again. I will threaten him in front of cameras, Victoria said coolly, pointing to the dozens of phones recording the confrontation. Please, continue. You're doing a wonderful job of proving his point. Bowman realized what he'd done. He stepped back, trying to regain control, but it was too late. His mask had slipped. Everyone had seen the rage, the desperation, the barely contained violence of a man who knew he was cornered. Security finally managed to clear the stage. Noah, Victoria, Patricia, and Angela were escorted to a secure room backstage while the auditorium continued to erupt in chaos. Inside the room, Noah collapsed into a chair. His hands were shaking. Adrenaline was coursing through him so hard he felt sick. Did we just do that? He asked. We did, Victoria said. She looked shaken too, but there was something almost euphoric in her expression. We actually did it. Patricia was crying. Angela put a hand on her shoulder. You were incredibly brave, Angela said. I just ended my career, Patricia replied. You saved lives. That's worth more than a career. Noah's phone started buzzing, then buzzing again, then constantly, a flood of notifications that didn't stop. He pulled it out and stared at the screen, texts from reporters, emails from lawyers, missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize, and one text from Emily. I'm watching online. You were amazing. Mom would be proud. Noah felt tears sting his eyes. He showed the message to Victoria. Your daughter is incredible, Victoria said quietly. Yeah, she is. Angela's phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then her eyes went wide. Turn on the TV, she said. Someone found a remote and switched on the television mounted in the corner. Every news channel was covering the summit. The headline on one read, Automotive giant accused of cover-up and safety defect deaths. Another, whistleblower exposes alleged corporate negligence. A legal analyst was speaking. If these allegations are proven, we're looking at potential criminal charges against Meridian executives. This could be one of the largest corporate negligence cases in history. Another channel showed Meridian's stock price. It had dropped 23% in the last hour and was still falling. They're bleeding out, Victoria said, watching the ticker. We just cost them billions. Good, Patricia said fiercely. Noah couldn't take his eyes off the screen. He'd spent 3 years invisible, dismissed, humiliated. Now the entire world was watching. The truth he'd been shouting into the void was finally being heard. But he also knew this was just the beginning. Meridian wouldn't go down without destroying everyone involved. The real fight was about to start. A knock came at the door. One of Victoria's security guards opened it slightly, then turned back. "There's someone here who says he needs to speak with Mr. Carter. He says it's urgent." "Who?" Noah asked. "He says his name is David Chen. He's a former Meridian engineer." Noah exchanged glances with Victoria. "Let him in." A man in his 40s entered, looking nervous and determined. He was Asian, wearing casual clothes, carrying a laptop bag. "Mr. Carter," he said, "I saw your presentation. I worked at Meridian for 6 years. I was on the team that tested the brake system. I quit 2 years ago because they refused to address the problems I documented." "Do you have evidence?" Angela asked immediately. David opened his laptop. "I have test results. Video footage of brake failures during internal trials. Emails where I was explicitly told to falsify safety reports. I kept everything because I knew someday it would matter." Patricia leaned forward. "Why didn't you come forward before?" "Same reason you didn't. I was scared. I signed an NDA. I have a family to support. But after watching you up there, after hearing what they did to Mr. Carter's wife, I can't stay silent anymore." Angela was already reviewing the files David pulled up. Her expression grew more intense with each document. "This is substantial," she said. "This corroborates everything we presented and adds new evidence of systemic falsification." "David, are you willing to testify?" "Yes, whatever it takes." Over the next 2 hours, 3 more former Meridian employees showed up. Each had been silenced by NDAs. Each had evidence they'd kept hidden. Each had been waiting for someone brave enough to go first. By evening, Angela had enough material to build a case that would take down not just Meridian, but potentially trigger investigations into industry-wide practices. "This is bigger than we thought," Angela said, organizing documents on a conference table. "If Meridian was doing this, chances are other companies were too. We might have just started a revolution." Noah felt exhausted and wired at the same time. He'd barely eaten all day. His suit jacket was soaked with sweat. His head was pounding from stress and adrenaline. Victoria appeared beside him with a bottle of water. "Drink this." "Thanks. How are you holding up?" "I don't know. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "It will. Meridian's lawyers are probably preparing their counterattack right now. We need to be ready." As if summoned by her words, Angela's phone rang again. She listened, her expression growing darker. "When? How many?" She hung up and turned to the room. Meridian just filed for an emergency injunction to prevent any of this evidence from being used in legal proceedings. They're claiming it was obtained illegally and violates multiple confidentiality agreements. "Can they do that?" Noah asked. "They can try. We'll fight it. But it might tie things up in court for months." "They're buying time," Victoria said. "Time to destroy more evidence, silence more witnesses, build their defense." Patricia looked devastated. "So we did all this for nothing?" "Not nothing," Angela said firmly. "Public opinion matters. Media pressure matters. Even if they block the legal process temporarily, they can't undo what happened today. The world knows now." But Noah could see the worry in everyone's faces. They'd struck the first blow, but Meridian was fighting back hard. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Carter?" The voice was older, refined. "My name is Senator Michaela Price. I chair the Senate Commerce Committee. I've been watching the coverage of your testimony today." Noah's heart started pounding. "Senator, I want you to know that I'm calling an emergency hearing. Meridian Automotive will be required to testify before Congress within the next 2 weeks. We will be investigating these allegations thoroughly, and I will personally ensure that any attempts to obstruct justice will be met with criminal referrals." "Why are you doing this?" "Because 20 years ago, my sister died in a car accident that was blamed on driver error. I've always suspected the vehicle was at fault, but I could never prove it. Your testimony today made me realize how many other families might have suffered the same injustice. This ends now." After she hung up, Noah relayed the conversation to the room. People started talking excitedly, hope rekindling. But Victoria pulled Noah aside, her expression serious. This is good news, she said quietly, but you need to understand something. Once Congress gets involved, this becomes political. Both parties will try to use it to their advantage. Meridian will leverage every connection they have. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. I know. And there's something else. I've been getting reports from my security team. Meridian has hired a crisis management firm known for aggressive tactics. They're not just going to fight us in court. They're going to come after us personally. What do you mean? Private investigators, media manipulation. They'll dig into every aspect of your life looking for anything they can use to discredit you. Any mistake you've ever made, any embarrassing moment, any questionable decision, they'll find it and weaponize it. Noah felt cold. I don't have anything to hide. Everyone has something, and even if you don't, they'll create something. Leaked photos taken out of context, anonymous sources making false accusations. It's what they do. What about you? Victoria smiled grimly. Oh, they'll come after me too, but I've been a public figure for years. I'm used to it. You're not. So what do? We prepare. We control our narrative, and we don't give them any ammunition. That night, Noah returned to his hotel room and tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Richard Bowman's face twisted with rage, heard the chaos of the auditorium, felt the weight of everything that had happened. He called Emily. She answered on the first ring. Dad, everyone at school is talking about you. You're famous. Listen to me carefully. Things are about to get harder. People are going to say bad things about me. You might hear stuff that isn't true. I don't care what people say. I know you're telling the truth. I know you believe that, but it's still going to be difficult. Are you okay? Are you safe? Yeah, the security guys Victoria sent are really nice. One of them taught me some self-defense moves. Despite everything, Noah smiled. That's good, sweetheart. When are you coming home? Soon. I have some meetings tomorrow. Then I'll be back. Okay. Dad? Yeah? Mom would be really proud of you. Noah's throat tightened. Thanks, Em. After he hung up, he stood at the window looking out at Chicago's skyline. Somewhere in this city, Meridian executives were plotting his destruction. Lawyers were building cases to silence him. Crisis management experts were digging through his past looking for weapons to use against him. But he'd finally told the truth. Sarah's death finally meant something. And whatever came next, he'd face it knowing he'd done the right thing. The next morning, Noah woke to his phone ringing incessantly. He'd slept maybe 2 hours total, and his body felt like it had been hit by a truck. The first call was from Marcus Chen. Noah, I need you to see something. Check your email. Noah opened his laptop. Marcus had sent a link to an article posted that morning by a tabloid news site. The headline made his stomach drop. Disgraced engineer's dark past. Alcoholism, domestic disputes, and questions about his wife's death. The article was filled with lies. Claims that Noah had been drinking the night of Sarah's accident. That neighbors had reported domestic disturbances. That his firing from Meridian was related to workplace violence, not whistleblowing. Every word was false, but it was written with just enough vagueness to avoid being actionable libel. It's starting, Marcus said when Noah called him back. They're trying to destroy your credibility. How do I fight this? You don't engage. You let your lawyers handle it, and you stay focused on the facts. Getting defensive just gives them more material. But over the next few hours, more articles appeared. Anonymous sources claiming to be Noah's former colleagues describing him as unstable, paranoid, difficult to work with. Someone posted old photos of Noah from right after Sarah's death, when he'd been devastated and drinking too much, and presented them as evidence of ongoing substance abuse. By noon, the narrative was shifting. News coverage that had been sympathetic the day before was now adding caveats. While Mr. Carter's allegations are serious, questions have emerged about his credibility. Victoria called. They're doing the same thing to me. Articles about my ruthless business practices, old lawsuits from disgruntled employees. They're painting me as a vindictive billionaire with an agenda. Is it working? Partially. Public opinion is splitting. Half the people believe us. Half think this is a personal vendetta. What do? We stay the course. Angela's team is preparing our response. Senator Price's hearing will give us a platform to counter the narrative. We just need to hold on. was his deeds. But holding on was harder than Noah expected. The death threats increased. Someone posted his address online and protesters started gathering outside his garage. Some supported him. Others held signs calling him a fraud, a liar, a murderer who'd killed his own wife for attention. Victoria's security had to expand their presence. The 2 guards became 4, then 6. They installed cameras and security systems. Noah's small garage began to feel like a fortress. Emily couldn't go to school. Too many reporters were camped outside. Too much chaos. She stayed inside their apartment watching movies and doing homework while the world outside went crazy. "I'm sorry," Noah told her. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this." "You didn't drag me into anything," Emily said. "I posted your designs, remember? I started this." "You're 10 years old. You shouldn't have to deal with any of this." Mom dealt with worse. She dealt with knowing the truth and not being able to prove it. At least we're fighting back. Noah looked at his daughter and wondered when she'd become so wise. 3 days after the summit, Noah received an email that changed everything. It was from an automotive engineer in Germany named Klaus Brenner. The subject line read, "You are not alone." The email contained technical specifications for brake systems used by multiple manufacturers across Europe. Klaus had compiled evidence showing that the same defect Meridian had covered up existed in vehicles produced by at least 4 other major companies. "This is not isolated," Klaus wrote. "This is systemic. The entire industry has been cutting corners on safety systems because the regulatory standards are too weak and enforcement is too corrupt. I have colleagues in Japan, Korea, and Brazil who have documented similar issues. If you are willing to expand your investigation beyond Meridian, we are willing to help." Noah forwarded the email to Angela and Victoria. Within hours, they were on a conference call with automotive engineers from 7 different countries. What emerged was terrifying. The brake defect was just one issue among dozens. Airbag systems that deployed improperly, fuel tanks positioned in impact zones, electronic systems prone to failure, software designed to cheat emissions tests that also compromise performance. The scope was staggering. "We're not fighting one company," Victoria said after the call ended. "We're fighting an entire industry." "Can we win?" Noah asked. "I don't know, but we have to try." Well, Senator Price's hearing was scheduled for the following week. Angela's team worked around the clock preparing Noah's testimony. They anticipated every possible attack, every attempt to discredit him, every trap Meridian's lawyers might set. Victoria prepared her own testimony. She would detail Hale Dynamics' internal findings, explain why she'd chosen to sever ties with Meridian, and outline her plans for the Independent Safety Research Center. Patricia would testify about her role in covering up the defect and her reasons for coming forward. David Chen and the other former Meridian employees would provide technical testimony about the falsified safety tests. It was a comprehensive case, built on irrefutable evidence and corroborated by multiple sources. But Noah knew Meridian wouldn't go down easily. The night before the hearing, he sat with Victoria in her hotel suite. She was drinking scotch, staring at documents she'd already memorized. "Are you scared?" Noah asked. "Terrified." "You?" "Beyond terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." She looked at him. "Noah, tomorrow is going to be brutal. Meridian's lawyers are going to try to break you. They'll bring up Sarah's death. They'll suggest you're doing this for attention or money or revenge. They'll make you relive the worst moments of your life in front of millions of people." "I know. Can you handle it?" Noah thought about Emily watching him fall apart. He thought about all the families who'd lost someone. He thought about Sarah, who'd never gotten justice. "I have to," he said. Victoria raised her glass. "To doing the impossible." Noah didn't have a glass, so he just nodded. The next morning, they arrived at the Senate building to find it surrounded by protesters, media, and security. Thousands of people had gathered, some supporting Noah, others defending Meridian. The crowd was so dense they had to be escorted through a side entrance. Inside, the hearing room was packed. Every seat filled, cameras everywhere, senators looking serious and important behind their elevated desks. Richard Bowman sat at the defense table with 6 lawyers. He looked calm and confident, a man who'd survived scandals before and expected to survive this one. Noah took his seat at the witness table. His hands were shaking, his mouth was dry. He felt like he might throw up. Senator Price called the hearing to order, and the battle for truth began. Senator Price's gavel struck 3 times, and the room fell silent. "This hearing will come to order," she said, her voice carrying authority that made even the packed gallery settle. "We are here today to investigate allegations of systemic safety negligence in the automotive manufacturing industry, with particular focus on Meridian Automotive. Mr. Carter, you may begin your testimony." Noah stood, his legs unsteady, and approached the microphone. He'd rehearsed this 100 times with Angela, but now that the moment was here, every prepared word vanished from his mind. He looked out at the sea of faces, at the cameras broadcasting this to millions of people, at Richard Bowman sitting 50 feet away with an expression of absolute contempt. Then he saw Victoria in the front row, nodding once. Emily was watching from home. Sarah was gone, but would have wanted this. He started talking. "My name is Noah Carter. 3 years ago, I was a senior safety engineer at Meridian Automotive. I discovered a critical defect in the brake system used in over 2 million vehicles. I reported it through every internal channel available. Instead of investigating my findings, Meridian fired me, destroyed my professional reputation, and 6 months later, my wife died because of the defect I'd tried to expose." One of the senators, a silver-haired man named Douglas Kern, who'd received substantial campaign contributions from automotive manufacturers, interrupted immediately. "Mr. Carter, isn't it true that you were terminated for performance issues unrelated to any alleged safety concerns?" "No, sir, that's not true. We have your personnel file here." Multiple reports of missed deadlines, conflicts with colleagues, insubordination. Those reports were fabricated after I filed my safety complaint. Before that complaint, my performance reviews were excellent. I have copies of my actual reviews that contradict Meridian's claims. Angela stood and submitted a folder to the committee. Senator Kern looked annoyed but moved on. "And isn't it also true that you've been diagnosed with depression and were prescribed medication following your wife's death?" Noah felt his chest tighten. They were going there, using his grief as a weapon. "Yes, I was prescribed antidepressants after Sarah died. Grief isn't a character flaw, Senator. It's a human response to loss. But it does raise questions about your mental state and whether your accusations are rational or the product of—" Senator Kern, Senator Price cut in sharply. "This committee will not engage in amateur psychological evaluation of witnesses. Mr. Carter's mental health is irrelevant to the factual evidence he's presenting. Continue, Mr. Carter." Noah breathed slowly and kept going. He walked through the timeline of events, the internal memos he'd written, the meetings where his concerns were dismissed. He presented the documents Patricia had provided, explaining each one in detail. The cost-benefit analyses, the deliberately buried test results, the settlements with confidentiality clauses. Meridian's lead attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Ellen Groves, was taking notes constantly. When Noah finished his initial testimony, she stood. "Mr. Carter, you claim these documents prove Meridian knew about a defect. But isn't it true that automotive engineering involves constant testing and evaluation? That identifying potential issues and studying their probability is standard practice?" "Yes, and isn't it also true that not every identified issue requires a recall? That engineers must balance theoretical risks against practical implementation?" "Not when people are dying. But people die in car accidents every day, Mr. Carter, tragically. Does that mean every vehicle involved was defective? When 17 people die in accidents caused by the same failure point, yes, that suggests a defect. Or it suggests driver error, road conditions, environmental factors. You're an engineer, not a crash reconstruction specialist. How can you be certain these accidents were caused by mechanical failure?" Noah felt himself getting angry. "Because I analyzed the failure points. The brake system had a design flaw that caused sensor malfunction under specific temperature and pressure conditions. That's not theoretical, that's mechanical fact. A mechanical fact that Meridian's engineers, who have far more expertise than you do, evaluated and found insufficient to warrant a recall. They found it cheaper to pay settlements than fix the problem." That's your interpretation. Another interpretation is that they made a professional judgment that you disagreed with, and when they didn't defer to your opinion, you became vindictive. My wife died. I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Carter. Truly, but grief doesn't make you right. It makes you biased. Noah wanted to scream at her, to make her understand that Sarah's death wasn't an acceptable cost of doing business. But he forced himself to stay calm. Then let's remove me from the equation, he said. Patricia Reeves, Meridian's former senior counsel, is here to testify. David Chen, a former engineer, has independent test results. We have documentation from multiple sources, none of whom are grieving or biased. They all tell the same story. Ellen Groves smiled thinly. We'll address those witnesses when they testify. For now, I want to focus on your relationship with Victoria Hale. Noah's stomach dropped. What about it? Isn't it true that Ms. Hale offered you $15 million for your designs? She offered to license them, yes. And you refused. Why? Because I didn't design those systems to make rich people richer. I designed them to save lives. How noble. But then Ms. Hale offered you something better, didn't she? A partnership. Control over a $200 million research center. Significant profit sharing. Would you say Ms. Hale has a financial incentive to help you destroy Meridian's reputation? She has an incentive to promote safety, or to eliminate a competitor. Hale Dynamics would benefit enormously from Meridian's collapse. Isn't it possible that you're being used as a weapon in a corporate war? No. Victoria is doing this because it's right. You have a lot of faith in a woman who, by your own account, initially dismissed and humiliated you. What changed, Mr. Carter? Why would she suddenly risk everything to help you? Noah hesitated. The honest answer was complicated. Victoria had changed because she'd confronted what she'd become. But saying that out loud would sound naive. People can change, he said finally. People can realize they've been wrong and try to do better. Or people can manipulate idealistic mechanics who want to believe in redemption, Ellen said smoothly. No further questions. Noah returned to his seat feeling battered. Victoria caught his eye and mouthed, "You did fine." But he didn't feel fine. He felt like they'd just twisted everything he'd said into something ugly. Patricia testified next. She was nervous but clear, walking through her role in covering up the defect, the legal strategies she'd developed, the settlements she'd negotiated. Ellen Groves tried to discredit her the same way, suggesting she was motivated by guilt rather than truth, but Patricia held firm. I did terrible things, Patricia said, her voice breaking. I helped Meridian bury evidence that could have saved lives. I'm not here for redemption. I'm here because my daughter and grandson nearly died because of what I helped hide. I can't undo what I did, but I can at least tell the truth now. David Chen testified about falsified safety tests. He brought video footage that showed brake failures in controlled environments, failures that were never reported to regulators. The technical evidence was damning. Then Victoria took the stand. She was calm, composed, absolutely confident. She walked through Hale Dynamics' internal investigation, the decision to sever ties with Meridian, the financial cost of that decision. She didn't pretend to be a saint. She acknowledged her own history of prioritizing profit over principle. I've made mistakes, Victoria said. I've hurt people. I've made decisions that protected my company at the expense of ethics. But Mr. Carter's designs forced me to confront a question I'd been avoiding. What's the point of building something powerful if it doesn't protect anyone? I don't expect anyone to believe I'm suddenly a moral crusader. I'm not. I'm a businesswoman trying to build something that matters instead of something that just makes money. Ellen Groves stood. Ms. Hale, you claim you're motivated by ethics, but isn't it true that Hale Dynamics has faced multiple lawsuits regarding your own safety systems? Yes, we've faced lawsuits. Some legitimate, some not. We've settled when appropriate and fought when the claims were baseless. So you're admitting your company has produced effective systems? I'm admitting that no company is perfect. We make mistakes. The difference is whether you acknowledge them and fix them or bury them and hope nobody notices. That sounds rehearsed, Ms. Hale. It's the truth. rehearsed or not. You're risking $200 million on Mr. Carter's research center. That's an enormous investment in an unproven engineer working out of a garage. Why? Because his designs are revolutionary, because they could save millions of lives, and because someone needs to prove that corporations can prioritize people over profit. Very inspiring, but you're also eliminating a major competitor, gaining exclusive access to valuable technology, and positioning yourself as a moral leader in an industry facing increased regulation. Quite profitable for someone supposedly motivated by ethics. Victoria smiled. I can be ethical and strategic at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. Or you're just better at manipulating public perception than Meridian is. If that's true, maybe Meridian should try actually being ethical instead of just pretending. The gallery erupted in applause. Senator Price had to bang her gavel for order. Ellen Groves looked furious. When Richard Bowman finally testified, he was smooth and professional. He denied everything, called the documents forgeries or misinterpretations, suggested that Patricia was mentally unstable, that David Chen was disgruntled, that Noah was delusional with grief. Meridian Automotive has been building safe, reliable vehicles for 40 years, Bowman said. We employ thousands of people. We contribute billions to the economy. And now we're being destroyed by a coordinated attack from competitors who want to eliminate us, and engineers who couldn't succeed within our system. Senator Kern nodded along. Mr. Bowman, thank you for your perspective. I think it's important we don't rush to judgment based on emotional testimony and disputed documents. But Senator Price wasn't buying it. Mr. Bowman, can you explain why Meridian paid out $17 million in settlements related to brake failures if there was no defect? We settle nuisance lawsuits to avoid costly litigation. It's standard practice. $17 million is a lot of nuisance. Litigation is expensive. Sometimes settlement is more cost-effective even when you're not at fault. And the internal memo discussing cost-benefit analysis of recalls versus settlements? Taken out of context, that memo was part of a theoretical exercise, not an actual policy decision. A theoretical exercise that happened to predict exactly what Meridian did. Bowman's expression tightened. I'm not going to let this committee twist our internal communications into evidence of conspiracy. We followed all regulatory requirements. We cooperated with investigations. We did everything the law requires. The law requires, Senator Price repeated. Mr. Bowman, do you believe the law is sufficient? Or do you believe companies have a moral obligation beyond legal minimums? I believe companies have an obligation to their shareholders, not to their customers. Our customers benefit from affordable, reliable vehicles. If we implemented every theoretical safety improvement, cars would be prohibitively expensive. We balance safety, cost, and practicality. You balance lives against profit margins. That's an unfair characterization. Is it? Because that's exactly what your internal memos describe. The hearing stretched for 9 hours. By the end, Noah was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, uncertain whether they'd accomplished anything. The senators were split. Some clearly believed Meridian was guilty. Others seemed convinced Noah was a conspiracy theorist being manipulated by Victoria. But the media coverage was overwhelmingly sympathetic. The combination of Patricia's testimony, David's technical evidence, and Victoria's willingness to sacrifice billions had shifted public opinion decisively. Even people who questioned the details believed something was deeply wrong. That night, Noah collapsed in his hotel room. He just closed his eyes when his phone rang. It was Angela. "Turn on the news," she said. Noah grabbed the remote. Every major channel was covering the same story. The Department of Transportation had announced a comprehensive investigation into Meridian Automotive. The FBI was opening a criminal inquiry. The SEC was investigating potential securities fraud. "We did it," Angela said. "They can't bury this anymore." But the real bombshell came 3 days later. Klaus Brenner, the German engineer, released a coordinated international report documenting safety defects across multiple manufacturers in 17 countries. The report went viral immediately. Within 24 hours, governments worldwide were launching investigations. The entire automotive industry was under siege. Companies started racing to implement reforms before regulators forced them. Voluntary recalls were announced. Safety standards were upgraded. Whistleblower protections were strengthened. And at the center of it all was Noah Carter, the mechanic from Riverside who'd refused to stay silent. Meridian's stock continued to collapse. Within 2 weeks, it had lost 60% of its value. Richard Bowman was forced to resign. Federal prosecutors filed criminal negligence charges against 7 executives. The company declared bankruptcy 3 months later. Noah felt no satisfaction watching Meridian destroy itself. He'd wanted justice, not destruction. But the company had made its choices. The consequences were theirs to face. Victoria kept her promise. The Carter Safety Innovation Center opened 6 months after the hearing. It was housed in a new facility outside Riverside, a massive complex dedicated entirely to developing and testing automotive safety systems. Noah led a team of 50 engineers, all committed to the same principle. Lives mattered more than profits. The center operated transparently. All research was publicly available. All testing was independently verified. Any manufacturer could implement the technologies free of charge as long as they met strict safety standards. Within a year, Noah's collision detection system was standard in vehicles worldwide. His predictive braking technology reduced accident rates by 30% in early testing. His rollover prevention mechanism saved thousands of lives in its first 2 years of implementation. Emily grew up watching her father transform from a broken mechanic into someone the world respected. She gave tours of the center to school groups, explaining the technology with a combination of pride and inherited engineering brilliance. She was 14 now, already talking about studying engineering in college, already designing her own improvements to her father's systems. Victoria split her time between Hale Dynamics and the research center. She'd taken a massive financial hit from her decisions, but Hale Dynamics survived by being the first major manufacturer to implement full transparency in safety testing. Other companies followed. The industry changed slowly, reluctantly, but it changed. Patricia Reeves never practiced law again. She took a job at the research center, handling ethics compliance, making sure the center never became what Meridian had been. She was still fighting lawsuits from her former employer, still facing potential criminal charges for her role in the cover-up, but she faced them with more peace than she'd felt in years. Noah stood in the main laboratory one afternoon watching his team test a new sensor array when Victoria appeared beside him. "You know what the anniversary is today?" she asked. Noah thought for a moment. 4 years since you showed up at my garage and called my work desperate fantasies. 4 years since I was an arrogant billionaire who thought power meant never being wrong. You're still an arrogant billionaire. True, but at least I'm building something that matters now. They watched the test in silence. The sensor array performed flawlessly, detecting obstacles with precision that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. "Do you ever regret it?" Victoria asked. "Going public? Everything that happened?" Noah considered the question. The death threats had eventually stopped, but he still received hate mail from people who thought he'd destroyed American jobs by taking down Meridian. His relationship with Emily had been strained during the worst of it. He'd developed anxiety that probably wouldn't ever fully go away. But then he thought about the families who'd written to thank him, the parents whose children survived accidents because of his systems, the engineers who'd found the courage to speak up about problems at their own companies because he'd shown them it was possible. "No," he said, "I don't regret it." "Good, because I'm about to make it worse." "How?" Victoria handed him a folder. Inside were preliminary designs for a global automotive safety coalition, an international organization that would set standards beyond what any government required, would investigate accidents independently, would force transparency across the entire industry. "This is ambitious," Noah said. "It needs to be. We changed one company. We need to change the system. Who's going to run it?" "I was hoping you would." Noah laughed. "I'm an engineer, not an administrator. You're a person who refused to accept that money matters more than lives. That's exactly who should run it." Noah looked at the designs, at Victoria's hopeful expression, at the laboratory full of people dedicated to making the world safer. "I'll think about it," he said. That evening, Noah drove home to the small house he'd bought on the edge of Riverside. It wasn't much, but it had a yard where Emily could play and a garage where he could still work on cars when he needed to think. Sarah's photo sat on the mantel. 4 years gone. but still present in everything Noah did. Emily was in her room doing homework. Noah knocked and entered. "Hey, sweetheart." "Hey, Dad, how was work?" "Good. Victoria wants me to run an international safety organization." "Well, for you, buying boss mama set."
That's cool. Are you going to do it? I don't know. It would be a lot of work, a lot of time away from home. Emily looked at him with those eyes that were so much like Sarah's. Mom would want you to do it. You think? Yeah. She'd want you to help as many people as possible. That's what the drawings were always about, right? Noah sat on the edge of her bed.
"When did you get so smart?"
I've always been smart. You just finally noticed. He laughed and hugged her. I love you, Em. I love you too. Now get out. I have math homework. Noah went downstairs and stood in his garage.
It was clean and organized now, no longer the desperate workspace of a broken man. But his original design still hung on one wall, preserved behind glass. The sketches that had started everything. He thought about Victoria's offer, about the global coalition, about how far they'd come and how far they still had to go, about whether one person could really change an entire industry. Then he remembered standing in his failing garage 4 years ago, believing he was nobody, believing his work would never matter. He remembered Victoria laughing at his designs. He remembered the moment he'd decided to fight back instead of disappearing. Sometimes the people who break your life apart push you toward the future you were meant to build. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what you're actually capable of becoming. Sometimes the world only changes because someone refuses to accept that it can't. Noah pulled out his phone and called Victoria. "I'll do it," he said when she answered. "The Global Coalition. Bots. I'm in." "Good. I'll have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow." "Victoria?" "Yeah."
Well, thank you for believing in me, even after you didn't. There was a pause. Then Victoria said, "You know what I learned from all this?
That being powerful means nothing if you don't use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. You taught me that, so I should be thanking you. We can both be grateful." "Deal." After he hung up, Noah returned to looking at his original designs. The work of a man who'd lost everything and decided the only way forward was to create something that mattered. A man who'd been dismissed as nobody and proved that nobody can change the world if they refuse to stay silent. The tiny garage in Riverside became a landmark. People visited from around the world to see where the revolution began, where a single father working in grief and desperation had designed technology that would save millions of lives, where a billionaire had walked in with contempt and walked out with purpose, where everything changed because someone finally told the truth. Years later, when Emily was grown and working as an engineer herself, she'd bring her own children to see the preserved garage. She'd show them her father's original sketches and tell them the story of the man who wouldn't give up. "Your grandfather could have stayed silent," she'd tell them. "He could have let fear and grief win, but he chose to fight. Not because he thought he'd win, but because staying silent would have dishonored everyone who'd been hurt by people who chose profit over lives." Her children would ask if he was scared. "Terrified," Emily would answer. But being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Iski us. Dare say, Noah never stopped missing Sarah, never stopped wishing she could have seen what her death had created. But he'd learned something through the pain and the fight and the slow rebuilding of his life. That love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms. It becomes purpose. It becomes the reason you keep going when everything else falls apart. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it becomes the force that changes the world. The automotive industry would never be the same. Safety standards tripled within 5 years of Noah's testimony. Corporate transparency became mandatory. Whistleblower protections were strengthened globally. Accident rates dropped by 40% as new technologies were implemented. Thousands of lives were saved, maybe tens of thousands, maybe more. All because a mechanic in a failing garage refused to let his wife's death be meaningless. All because a billionaire chose redemption over power. All because a 10-year-old girl believed her father mattered when the world said he didn't. All because someone, finally, told the truth.